Hello, students. Okay, I'm wearing a hat. It's winter, but it makes it easier. I don't have to comb my hair. So let's begin with your first lesson in this series of videos. And we're going to be talking about genetics. Genetics is a very important section, like every other section, but this section carries 45 marks out of the 150 in paper 2. Thus, we have to know genetics through and through. Remember, genes determine what we look like. And very importantly, one gene, one characteristic. So if we're looking at the characteristic of height in a plant, you will see in this particular scenario that they have presented to you, they talk about a dominant allele and a recessive allele. Now, many students are confused. Ma'am, you say one gene, one characteristic. Where does the concept allele come from? Allele is actually a gene, but there's a version of the gene that appears in mom and a version of that gene that appears in dad. Now, these two versions are referred to as allele. Sometimes both these versions are identical. So, for example, if you look at these particular chromosomes, known as homologous chromosomes, because they are similar in shape, size, and location of their alleles. You'll see in both these chromosomes, of course, one would be from mom, one from dad. At the same position or locus, they are bearing identical alleles. And in this case, both the alleles are the dominant alleles. So they are telling you that tallness is dominant over shortness, making it easier for you. So with these particular homologous chromosomes, if this appears in a plant, where will it appear? In the nucleus of every one of the cells. This particular organism will have a capital T as its genotype or genetic composition. So physically, how would this plant appear if they have these two alleles? And of course, because these are two dominant alleles, that particular plant will appear tall. So the genotype is capital T, and the physical appearance of phenotype is tall. Now let's see what would happen if in a particular organism, in every nucleus of every cell, you would find you have got the allele small t. So that would be the genotype, small t. Physically, how would this plant appear? Let's go back. Small t is a recessive allele, and therefore that plant would appear short. However, there are two recessive alleles, so thus the plant would appear short. What would happen if there's only one of those recessive alleles? And the other allele is a capital T or a dominant allele. The genotype would be capital T, small t, but how would this organism appear? Yes, tall. How come not short? Because, let's look at the biological term, dominant allele. If an allele is dominant, my darlings, an allele that is expressed in the phenotype when found either in a heterozygous and homozygous condition is known as a dominant allele. Oh my God, heterozygous and homozygous, what on earth does that mean? In other words, if there are two identical alleles, that is a homozygous condition, and if there are two different alleles, that is a heterozygous condition. No? So whether these dominant alleles appear in a homozygous condition or there is one dominant allele in a heterozygous condition, the dominant characteristic will show, because the dominant allele will mask the recessive allele. So you, shortness here, you cannot have a say. Only the tallness will have a say. So thus we know the concept of dominant allele, whether it is homozygous dominant or heterozygous dominant, the dominant characteristic would show. So when will the recessive characteristic show? Only when both the recessive alleles are found. So it is an allele that is masked in the phenotype when found in a heterozygous condition, as you see here. Heterozygous means having two different alleles. If it is found together with the dominant allele, it will have no say. It will be masked. But if it is found in a homozygous condition like here, when there are two recessive alleles, then the recessive characteristic will show. In other words, the shortness will show. Good. So how many terms have you come across? Alleles, different forms of a gene appearing in the same locus. Genotype, the genetic composition. Phenotype, the physical appearance, either tall or short in this case. Dominant allele, you can be homozygous dominant or you can be heterozygous dominant. So if they say to you, an organism is heterozygous black, which is the dominant characteristic? Blackness. If they say to you heterozygous short-winged, which is the dominant characteristic? Short-winged. Because only the dominant characteristic can show in the heterozygous form. Is that clear? Recessive alleles can only show when they are in a homozygous recessive condition. What does homozygous mean? Having two identical alleles. So here we go. This is a homozygous condition. This is also a homozygous condition. Heterozygous means having two different alleles for a particular characteristic. So this is a heterozygous condition. Let's check how much we have learned by looking at this activity. I will scroll down to the activity. It says, choose an item from column 2 that matches the description in column 1. Write only the letter next to the question number. So should you not follow this instruction, then no credit will be awarded to you. In other words, you will be marked wrong if you put gene as an answer when the answer was supposed to be capital A. So let's go for it. An allele that is not expressed in the phenotype when found in the heterozygous condition. Oh, let me stop right here. Let me give you a minute to answer this. Okay, counting down. And I'll take my face off the video just so that you can concentrate. Time is up. Let's see if you got it right. Of course, there would be terms there that you haven't come across as yet, but you could have worked out the answers. The allele that is not expressed in the phenotype when found in a heterozygous condition, which one is expressed? The dominant. The one that's not expressed will therefore be the recessive. So what is your answer? B. Hope you got it right. Different forms of a gene which occur at the same locus on homologous chromosomes? Yes. alleles. Remember, you got one allele from mom, one allele from dad. This is the one you would have fought it with. A sex-linked condition where blood fails to clot properly. Those of you who've done some reading, C, hemophilia. By the way, number 2, the answer was H, not alleles. A pair of chromosomes in a diploid organism that have the same size and shape and control the same set of characteristics. We mentioned them at the beginning of the lesson. Homologous. The physical and functional expression of a gene. Oh my God, my children. This is how they confuse children. Such difficult term. However, physical, phenotype, PH. Phenotype, so the answer is G. Hope you had fun. And with that, we end our first lesson, and I'll be looking at complete dominance in the second lesson. God bless you, my children, until I see you again.